Hello everybody, and welcome to my new YouTube series about how to make the perfect hat. I have with me a knitting machine, and I'll get into the machine in a little bit, but I'm going on a journey here to try and make the best possible hat. And I don't think there's going to be one option or one thing that makes the perfect hat, but there are a few things that I really want to look into, do a lot of different experimenting, kind of week by week. And then at the end, hopefully, if we don't have the perfect hat, we're going to have a lot of awesome hats that are going to fit perfectly and they're going to wear like iron and hopefully make a true lifetime piece. So some of the different variables that are going to go into making a great hat are going to be things like fiber selection. Where I'm at in Mongolia and my company Ola and Leah, we make yarn from 4 different fibers. So we got sheep wool, baby camel wool, yak wool, and cashmere. So through these different fibers, there could be a lot of different things that change, right? There's going to be some that are softer than others, although I'm not super concerned about that. What I am more concerned about is things like stretch. And not only how much do they stretch, but then how do they rebound and recoil? And are they going to lose memory when they do that? I'm assuming that they all are going to lose memory a bit. So if you stretch them out a bunch, they're not going to completely rebound to where they were previously. But if you can figure out that difference and that difference between the fibers, then you can figure out how to properly size a hat for those fibers later on. I hope that makes some sense. So we got the fibers, that'll be one thing. And then also, which I think will even be more important, is the different types of knits and the fiber construction, and particularly ribbing, which is super important for hats. It's what actually makes it hold on to your head. And then when you come to ribbing, there's different types of ribbing. There's fisherman's rib. On the machine, you got full needle rib. You got 1x1 rib, 2x2 rib. I'm not the best video editor. I'm going to be learning here along the way, but I'll have some pictures of those hopefully to explain a bit as well, and I'll get into them. But those are going to be really important, and how tight the ribs are. So you can make it with different tension. Should it be a tighter tension? That's going to be a little bit of a stiffer fabric, but it might hold better. Looser, you get more stretch, but maybe it's not going to last as long. We're going to see. And we're going to do experiments every step of the way. Another very important thing is going to be ease and the amount of stretch in a hat. So kind of related to that. But I think the most important thing, so we're going to have to test these different ribbing types, test the different fabrics, and then from that we'll figure out how big to actually make the hats. So with the idea of ease, so for example, say that your head is about 20 inches in circumference or 21 inches in circumference. If you make it with 2 inches of ease, or 3 inches, let's go 2 inches, all right? If your head is 20 inches, 2 inches of ease, you would make the hat with a circumference of 18 inches, right? You want it to be a little bit smaller, so you pull it on, and then it actually sticks on your head. This amount of ease is going to change depending on the different variables used, so the rib, the fiber, all of these things. And that's going to be really important. So we're going to have to figure out the different fibers and then figure out how much smaller that hat needs to be in order for it to fit perfectly. And also, as you're going to see, all of these are going to be made by hand on my knitting machine here. So they're all going to be made to measure. If I'm making a hat for somebody, you're going to have to measure your dome. I'm going to get the perfect measurement for that, figure out the ease so that you have a perfect fitting hat. In my opinion, there's really no use in going through all of this complication, all of the swatches, all of the testing to make a perfect fitting hat that's one size fit all. That's not possible, in my opinion. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly, and I'm really excited to get into it. So I guess with that kind of introduction out of the way and the different variables we're going to be testing and how we're going to be doing it, I figured I'd show a couple of examples and maybe illustrate a bit of some of the different design choices we're going to have and the differences that they're going to make. So here I have a yak wool hat. And this is made out of fisherman's rib. You can see it's lofty, right? So this is made with, all right, so my company, Ola and Leah, we make generally knitting yarn, hand knitting yarn. And with hand knitting yarn, they come in different widths. Usually, hand knitting yarn is a bit thicker than what you would see in a general machine knitting practice or operation. So with this hat, I used what we call DK weight, or double knitting yarn. And our DK weight, at least with the Ola and Leah, it's made up of 6 plies spun together, twisted together. There's also different weights that we use. We use fingering weight, which is 3 plies together, so DK is twice as thick. And then for some of the testing, I'll be doing DK and fingering together for 9 plies, DK and DK for 12 plies, although that's getting at the limits of my machine. So that being said, this one is made with just 1 strand of DK. Although the way that fisherman's rib is made, it makes for a thicker knit. So you kind of like a yarn that's a little bit thinner, but after this is made, it's lofty and it makes it quite thick and chunky, which I actually really like. So this hat, again, it's very lofty, it's thick, so it's gonna be super warm, especially yak wool, right? It's a very warm fiber, maybe a lot more so compared to the other natural fibers that we have here too. But I love this hat. It's very warm. It's great for Mongolian winters when it gets like -20, -30 degrees here. So if you really want to be warm, fisherman's rib, it's great. I get a lot of wear out of this hat. Made with our yak wool dyed in mulberry and antique ruby, kind of marl at the top. But some other things that are important. I mean, this hat's been worn in a while. You can see in the ribbing, there's some stretch, really not that much. So that's something to keep in mind. But overall, a great hat. Another one here is baby camel wool in gold. So this is a full needle rib. You can see in the brim here, the ribbing is a bit more stretchy. And just an idea, I do like this hat, but whenever I made it, I didn't have the ease perfectly figured out. This has a lot more stretch to it. And if you don't take that into consideration and make the hat small enough, then after you wear it, after you wash it a few times, it's gonna be way too big. And I wouldn't say this is way too big, but it's too big. It doesn't stay on my head quite as well, although I do get some use out of it. And this is also a DK weight. So it's 6 plies, although it's made with a full needle rib. Full needle rib compared to fisherman's rib, and this is made with the same yarn, same thickness of yarn. Although this is much thicker and more lofty, this is much more dense. So they're about the same weight, it's just this is much more dense and much heavier, this is more lofty, and this is more stretchy too. So again, all these different variables that are gonna come into play. And another yak wool hat. This one I did not make. I work with a group of people here that they make hats on hand-driven knitting machines as well. And as far as looking for the perfect hat, they actually might have already nailed it. I love this hat. A little bit thinner than the other ones, also a ribbed all the way through. And it's just a great hat. I go back to it, I've probably had this exact hat for 2 years, 18 months at least. And in the winter, I can get nearly daily wear out of it. And it's just great hat. Warm, not too warm, durable, holds its shape, and it just fits me perfectly. And again, like there's really not that much stretch left in these. Even in the natural fibers, there's not much stretch. And so that's why I think, if you're talking about 1/2 inch on a head, I think it's gonna make a really big difference once we figure out all these different variables to get the perfect fitting hat. You just want it to be snug, right? Too tight with a wool hat, it's gonna get kind of itchy whenever you get warm and sweaty. It's not gonna breathe very well. But something like this, it's just perfect. Not too tight, not too loose, just a great, great hat. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we're getting into. And I guess one more thing to mention is these are all ribbed hats. So they go, they're completely reversible, right? They look the same on both sides. There's other hats that we're gonna get into. Maybe let me pull this swatch here, where this is a cashmere swatch. And if I can, maybe it would be easier for me to just overlay a photo of what I'm thinking of. But you'll have the rib. You can also have a hat with rib at the bottom that, imagine this is like the rib comes down and this will grab onto your head. And then above it, you have just kind of a stockinette stitch, which is more plain. And then that'll make up the rest of the hat. So there's a lot of different, of course, style options to choose from. Stockinette stitch, it's not quite as thick as ribbing, generally speaking, but then it's also not reversible. So in the back, you'll have a different pattern. Maybe that's a problem, maybe it's not, but again, some different ideas. So yeah, with the introduction kind of set there, I'm gonna get into a bit of the equipment and then make a swatch. So you guys see how it works and the idea going forward of how we're going to make all these different samples and do the different testing. So, as far as equipment goes, I have myself here a Brother KH260 knitting machine, and with a ribber attachment, which is helpful for ribbing. So you kind of have two knitting beds going together. It gives you the option to make a lot of different fabrics. Not the most probably familiar things for most people, but knitting machines, they are much quicker than hand knitting. I don't know that I would say that it's more difficult or easy per se. I would say a lot of the difficulty in knitting comes from shaping and fitting and having the proper tension through your work. So tension being how tight or loose the different knits are together. Creating I would say a stable tension throughout your work is much easier on a knitting machine, so that helps a lot. So if you want to have consistent pieces and make stuff made to measure, that type of a thing, I think a knitting machine is much easier. And it's orders of magnitude faster, unless you're making mistakes. Mistakes are much more punishing, I would say, on a knitting machine. So with that being said, I'm going to get going. Maybe put a time lapse on here of making a swatch in fisherman's rib. You could see how it's made, what it looks like, and give you an idea of what the rest of this project is going to look like and how I'm going to be doing my testing. And there we go. Let me drop the weights off of this. Pull out the cast on comb. Drop the machine down and then pull out our, there we go, our freshly created fisherman's rib swatch. You can see how lofty and kind of lightweight, I guess this is, or it's very thick, but yeah, very lofty, almost like that yak wool hat I showed earlier. So this is the first swatch that I've done of the fisherman's rib, and this isn't sheep wool, but I've got some other wools here, like this is a full needle rib, and this is DK and fingering weight held together. So you could see, right, this is much thicker, much more dense compared to this, which is much more lofty. And again, the tension is maybe a bit loose in this. We can tighten this up or use a thicker yarn, which makes the knit and tension kind of tighter as is too. So a lot of different things to go through. How it is for me starting off is I made an order for a lot of sheep wool yarn with this project in mind. I got about 200 pounds of yarn. I'll show a picture of that over there in my craft room as well. So I'm not going to feel guilty about making a bunch of swatches, doing a bunch of testing. I want to use the yarn, even though it is a beautiful fabric. This Mongolian sheep wool, it really is nice. I can wear it right on my skin, no worries. I do want to do a lot of different testing with the other fibers, but it gets very expensive to do a lot of testing with cashmere or something like that, for example. I also have a lot of dyeing supplies on the way because all of my sheep wool is white. So we'll be doing some home dyeing and stuff too. A little bit different from finding the perfect hat mechanically, but a lot of different cool stuff we're going to do with hand dyeing as well. So that's the intro, I guess, to how to make a perfect hat. And I'm really interested in the next episode. I'm going to be testing the different ribs, the different fibers, and the fabric types to find maybe the perfect construction and get going from there. And pretty soon we'll be making samples as well. Also, if you're interested in this and interested in the products, I got a link in the video description to sign up for an email list. And this will be through my site. But at the end of all of this, I'm going to do a giveaway, a hat giveaway to 5 people. We'll figure out the shipping later, and you are going to have to give me your measurements so I can make them perfectly for you. But they're going to be shipped out of Mongolia, handmade in Mongolia right here on the machine. And so I'm not exactly sure the logistics quite yet. If we're going to send them out individually from here, or if I'll do them bulk back to America and then ship out from there, or whatever we're going to do. But we'll figure it out. So please do sign up for that if you're interested in entering the giveaway. And I promise I don't send out too many emails. Maybe once every quarter or so like that to update what's going on with the company, the different things we're doing. So yeah, please let me know any questions or what you like to see in your favorite hat, maybe give you some pointers. A lot of this is new for me. I am not a master at machine knitting by any means. This is kind of a new hobby for me. And this project is a way to kind of motivate myself to do something cool, to keep going and to learn. So especially in my hand knitting stuff and my designing later, it's not all going to be perfect, but I'm going to be learning along and through this process. So thank you. I hope you enjoy the series, and I'm looking forward to the next videos.